I want to give this disclaimer. I am not a scholar. I did not go to college or high school. I graduated from the School of Hard Knocks. I do not claim to know everything, but while I was in prison, I did study Black American history, and because of that, I am very protective over Black Americans, our image, and social justice. I admit that I am passionate about the topic of Black Americans and can become triggered if someone is verbally or physically attacking the Black American image, culture, or people. With that said, I also want to admit that because of my upbringing, I do suffer from arrested development, and things can certainly be taken to another level. Growing up in the hood, there were certain unwritten rules associated with men. I have participated in extreme violence throughout my lifetime as it was necessary for survival, especially growing up in the 80s, early 90s. Just like substance abuse programs, you learn that you may always be a recovering addict, but you develop tools and strategies to stay sober. The same thing with violence. It may always be my instinct to settle issues with violence, but I develop skills and tools to redirect that behavior. In this reaction video, I had become enraged and had the desire to settle the conflict with violence once it became personal. And like an addict in recovery, I had to redirect those urges. I am elated that we were not in person for this discussion because I may certainly have relapsed. As a mentor, I have always told my young people that I am not perfect, and oftentimes I want to relapse myself. But we have to redirect that energy, if not for anything else, but for self-preservation. As we get into this video, there's something that I've learned. One is I am a writer, mentor, and an activist. I am not a debater. Therefore, to avoid triggers in the future that could jeopardize my safety and the safety of others, I will not be debating as it presents a doorway of disrespect, and I have a zero tolerance as it pertains to personal insults and disrespect.
It's like he's playing a chess game. He's a very smart man. He's a businessman. Actually, I just drove somebody from Saudi Arabia, and this is one of the views that they think of him in Saudi Arabia. They said he's a businessman. Money can buy him. And I think at this juncture, with some of the stuff that he's doing with his family, all of his family members on a large scale, I'm not saying that other presidents haven't done favors for their family, but I mean billions and trillions of dollars are being funneled into his family through Bitcoins, through businesses overseas. Come on, brother. He's telling us he's going to have jobs for Black people. Once he moves the immigrants out of these factories, we'll have more Black people in factories. Why couldn't say we have more jobs for white people in these factories?
Do you remember his first term, 2016, 2017, after he got elected? And all these Antifa folks, Black Lives Matter folks, was going around defacing statues, tearing statues down. Remember that time? They had.
I do remember that.
All right. They started renaming schools. Robert E. Lee can't be Robert E. Lee School anymore. Streets and all such and such. You had no problem with that. You had no problem with them defacing. So now they had to take all these statues off and put them away back in Washington, D.C. So all these statues, even though they were racist, Robert E. Lee or whoever, but it was still part of American history.
Slave me. Wasn't nothing wrong with slavery. At least we got good food back there. White man sure could be your...
Robert E. Lee. On this issue, I find that we have a difference of opinion. While historical figures have a place in the American experience, there's a very big difference between telling the story of certain individuals and glorifying or praising them. For example, Robert E. Lee was a Confederate soldier that was fighting to continue the inhumane system of slavery in the United States. While it may have been against the law to tear down a statue of him, the people were morally correct to be offended by the glorification of such an individual. The slave culture in the United States was very brutal and detrimental to Black Americans, who have every right to feel re-traumatized by the praising of such figures. I can agree that his statue has a place, maybe in a museum, but not a statue or a street named after a person that approved mass murder, terrorism of men, women, and children, and the torture of human beings. Let us remember that the slave trade was brutal. It was mass murder. It was torture and economic deprivation and devastation to black people in the United States. On the other hand, Trump, being the president, was calling for the removal of museums that captured the history of the victims of slavery, of the victims of this mass murder and genocide. The fight for civil rights is the reason that the U.S. changed their open policy of lynching black people for any reason or for no reason at all. The civil rights struggle is what made the United States a better country and a global leader in the human rights struggle, even if it was truly unearned. The civil rights struggle gave legitimacy to the United States being the land of the free, and is the reason why immigrants of color were attracted to the country. If immigrants would have migrated during slavery, many of them would have likely been captured, tortured, and forced into free labor for the white property owners as well.
You had them take it all off. Y'all was tearing up places. Y'all burning up places down.
I didn't have them tearing it up. I didn't have them. I got you. I understand.
When I say you people, the word you is singular and plural. Okay? When I say you people, I'm not talking unless if it's convicted and you feel convicted, a hit dog will holler. So when I say you people, if it doesn't apply to you, just let it fly. Y'all had no problems with all these folks tearing down these statues, tearing down Lincoln and all this stuff. Y'all had no problem with that. So now he's putting away slavery and putting in another part of Washington. I have a problem with that. Dude, we are so tired of the slavery talk. Brazil had the most black slaves that went to Brazil. In Brazil, there's no black history. There's no black museums. There's no slave ships and all this shit.
Brazil. This individual was contrasting the United States slave system to the Brazilian slave system, which to me was two separate issues, moving the goalposts and nonsensical. If the former slaves in Brazil decided to fight to preserve their history and struggle towards freedom, then they have every right to do so. This is in the United States. So if you think that the former slave masters in Brazil dealt with their former slave population better, then go to Brazil. Why stay in the US and fight against the descendants of slaves that are demanding true history be acknowledged so it could never happen again? The truth is, the descendants of slaves' existence is a reminder of the worst brutality that the world has ever seen. And that is why the government wants to sanitize and erase their history.
We're the only country that does that.
Is that an ideal situation? To have no black history, even though the black people that were there have built it up to what it is now? Is that the ideal thing that we're going for in the United States?
When Black Lives Matter would burn down these statues and all that, we had no problem with that. Some of y'all cheered it on. Yeah, get these white crackers off our schools and all that. We want to see the murals and all that. So now the pendulum has swung, and now they're doing it to y'all, and then y'all losing your minds.
I listen to your black ass talk all day about how much you can't stand black folks. Ain't two of them in the history of the world that's worth a squirrel for. Well, how much you love white folks? Best thing the good Lord ever did for the planet Earth. Ruckus, you black as ace of spades, man. I don't see the need for you to go and insult the man after a game of checkers. We've been reminiscing all day, looking in each other's eyes, acting like we like each other. Now you got to go ahead and remind me of my ailment. Ailment? That's right. You heard of vitiligo? Shoot, well, I got vitiligo. Every year my skin just seems to get blacker and darker and blacker and then more darker. It's the opposite of what Michael Jackson got. Lucky bastard. Ruckus, how could you possibly love white people so much? It's easy. Have you ever looked at them? White man just a joy to be around. They smell like lemon juice and pledge furniture cleaner. And look at them. They gave us discipline, jobs, put structure in our lives, took us out the jungle. And what we do to show our appreciation? We march up and down the street. We vote. Carry on. Ingrates. Well, how about this? Game.
What's good for the goose? It's good for the gander.
And who's y'all?
Y'all is singular and it's plural. You are part of the Black Lives Matter or whoever, Democrats or whoever was on that side. I'm talking to you people.
Black Lives Matter. Although the organization of Black Lives Matter was co-opted, let us not forget the entire reason for the protest was because government employees were killing innocent black men and women with little to no consequence. This type of argument is designed to silence black people. This has been a white extremist talking point to force black American families and communities to suffer in silence. Allow the government to slaughter black citizens without speaking out against it. This way, they don't have to deal with public or international scrutiny.
I'm not talking to MAGA people because MAGA doesn't do that. Whoever on this side, the Antifa, the Black Lives Matter, the Code Pinks.
MAGA doesn't do that. Have you
Black
ever heard
Panthers.
of Chud the Builder?
Yep, what about him?
He just shot a black guy, a veteran, a guy that was actually a veteran, a guy that actually fought for this country, actually killed for the United States of America for their goals and their interests in foreign countries. And he decided to disparage him by calling him out of his name in front of a court building, provoking an issue with him, a very well-known disparaging name that he was calling this man. And then he put himself in a stance to enact some violence. And then when he did that, when he reached for his gun, the black person, the black veteran, went to grab him so he couldn't get a hold of his weapon, and he shot that black man. So this is what MAGA does. This is what people from MAGA is doing. So you can't say you people when they are committing acts of real violence, shooting.
You won't bring Chud the Builder into this. Okay, no problem.
And
Chud,
his elk.
I'm not a fan of him, okay? His shtick on YouTube was going around and inciting people, saying you chip it out by calling you niggas and all that. Cool. Now, he went to court for running on the bill or whatever. He's in court, and then the black guy comes and says, say what you said to my face. Call me a nigga in my face. So the black guy kind of instigated.
He instigated.
Dude said the black guy was stalking him. If I see Chud, I'm going to fuck him up. He said all in his tweets, if I see Chud, I'm going to fuck him up. And he saw Chud, and this is his time to fuck him up. Say what you say and say it in my face. Chud, the asshole, the fucking racist, said, you nigga, touch me and see what happens. He touched him, he shot him. The same thing that not Trayvon, what's your boy name? Anthony Kid. Touch me and see what happens. He touched him. Y'all said that's self-defense. Can y'all say the same thing with Chud? Is that self-defense?
First of all, Chud was the initiator. He was the provoker. And he reached for his weapon.
He said, touch me and find out.
He reached for his weapon.
Touch me and find out.
All right, so I'm trying to understand, because you made a couple of different points as far as the Robert E. Lee. Is it in the best interest of America to have statues naming monuments behind violent racists that were not only targeting but were killing black people in the United States? That's ideal to have.
These were generals. This is part of American history.
Racist history.
It doesn't matter. History is history. I find it so interesting that anytime we start talking about history now, for the last 20, 30 years, any history moment now, it had to involve race, women, or now the gays. For instance, let's say the Wright brothers invented the airplane. And then now it says, but black people's not allowed to do it. And then you have fill in the blank. You got to involve black people, women, or the gays. Every history from now on that has been told, especially by black people, you have to either put, especially race and women. It's so frustrating because, again, George Washington was the first general, but he owned slaves, blah, blah, blah. You always had to put a slave, or racism. You have to attach that to history now. This is not going to help us. History is history. It's a complicated history. It's a complicated history, but you can't keep picking.
Okay, all right.
Cherry picking.
My thing is, if we have been strategically erased from history, is it not appropriate to put in the fact that black people were here, black people were great inventors, black people were involved? Our history has been erased. A lot of people didn't grow up in school realizing that a black person was the first inventor of the air conditioner, or a black person was responsible for our stop signs and our traffic lights. A black person was responsible for inventing the flushing toilet that everybody used. A black person was responsible for inventing the door. It's okay to erase our history and to promote racist history.
Even
so
through
that's
Jim
the
Crow
ideal.
era. Even through all the rough times during slavery, black people still excelled and invented stuff, in your words. Now we have all this freedom. Since 1964, we have declined. You can't tell me one thing we invented in the past 80 years.
What do you mean?
You know
One
what I'm
thing we haven't invented in the past 80 years. Do you know what
Rap
the
music.
ADT system is? A black woman is the one that created the ADT system, and that was stolen away from
What
her.
about the cell phones? We're not even talking about cell phones and AI. That's black people, man. Kidding me?
Yeah, you are kidding me.
Or the internet? What about the internet?
Oh boy, internet was
Oh, so
started in the
oh boy,
60s.
so you have an anti-black sentiment.
I don't have an anti-black.
This is
I
what it
don't have
sounds
an.
like to me. You just said we haven't invented nothing. We just gave you 3 different things that everybody around the globe used within that 80-year interim that you just highlighted to suggest that black people ain't doing nothing since slavery, which is false. It's a falsehood.
You bring
I
up
mean,
the
we
80s.
created hip hop. Hip hop is a multi-billion-dollar industry
Like I
right
said,
now.
I brought that up. You created hip hop. Whoop-de-doo. And is that helping us? Is hip hop helping the black Americans right now?
Hip hop. Victim blaming is a tremendous problem in the black community. Critics of the black community often undermine or are dismissive of black accomplishment and highlight black dysfunction. It's as if blacks are always wrong no matter what they do, or their contributions to the United States is irrelevant. While hip hop does need to be more accountable for glorifying dysfunctional and criminal behavior, we have to remember that the corporate entities that invest in hip hop have the final say on what they would choose to invest in. Because of this, many lyrical or conscious MCs have either had to compromise their creative autonomy or rebrand in order to provide the type of product that investors would actually fund. By doing this, the investors lead the direction of hip hop. And this is how we end up with a lack of diversity in rap. That being said, yes, the black community has some dysfunctional behaviors that have been saturated into the image and culture of the people. It is our responsibility to not simply call it out, but to create strategies and solutions to reshape the direction of the culture.
When you look at my brothers, what's your first impression? Does the sight of us leave you guessing, or do you understand the stressing, the aggression, the look of no hope on my niggas' faces, like the Lord overlooked us when he handed down his graces? You see, embraces fall short on the numb tips of street entrepreneurial fingers, stuck in the walls of the project halls where the coke smell still lingers. External blingers is all we can be, because on the inside we've been given nothing to shine on. And the gig is harder to get than coke, so niggas get their grind on, because the TV tells us, aim high, nigga, make all goals lateral. But that takes paper that we don't have, so niggas put their souls up as collateral now. Some niggas reclaim them, some blame them, make an excuse to sell them. But when a nigga goes from not doing to doing, what can you tell him? Not to be a nigga? Shit, I got to be a nigga, that's how I pay the bills, and I'ma do that whether I got to sling this coke or exploit these rhyme skills. See, America makes you an opportunist, and at the same time, they institutionalize you. So the fact that niggas get these big record deals, big money, and then go to jail shouldn't surprise you. That's what lies do. And most of these guys do have raw talent, just infantile education. So the business feeds them all the weed and ecstasy and a little bit of paper to provide some pacification from all the bullshit frustration they serve you. Meanwhile, they corrupt your perception of what the real is. See, they taken all our businessmen and made them drug dealers. Took all our messengers, made them rappers just flapping their jaws, afraid to admit their treason. Took all our soldiers for the cause, made them killers for no reason and being fucked up. Well, that's in this season, so if you're negative, you're positive, and if you're positive, you're called a hater. But I maintain control of my soul because I know it gets greater later. And I told y'all the last show, I'm no hater, I just know what the truth is. I've been intertwining this pudding for a year now, so I know where the proof is. It lies in these midtown Manhattan skyscrapers where former hustlers sign papers and do fucked up capers. About 16 infamous stars at a time. Got them chopping and bagging and serving that shit to niggas 16 bars at a time, and the crime is undetectable by the feds because in the heads of our kids is where the track is. And music shoots straight to the soul. Is so potent, so it's much more addictive than crack is. Now, the high is just an illusion, lies and confusion, but just for that rush, just once these young bucks will go through it. So in essence, they're still flooding our streets with thugs, drugs, and killing. They just using these record labels to do it. Taking our heartfelt demos, putting us in limos, trying to fuck up our direction. And most niggas is trained to chase money and pussy, so we fall victim to our own erection.
I'm saying,
where you from? Where your people from?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Hold on a second.
Because
Hold on,
this is the reason why that
let
as
everybody
Black
know
Americans, we're
here.
delineating from people that are foreigners, first and second generation, that come to this country and become anti-black and align themselves with white extremists. So where do your people come from?
See, Mr. Hassan, I told you. Now, when I first came in, I was telling my little brief about myself.
Right.
I am
Let
first
me
generation.
step back. Let me step back so everybody can know who's here, because I think what's happening is we don't really know who's here. So we have 4 people online, including myself. Brother Magnetic, is that you?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing?
Okay, kindly introduce yourself, whether you speak or you don't speak. Just introduce yourself. And then G.S. Brooks, you can introduce yourself. And then Fritz, you can reintroduce yourself.
All right. I was just sitting here listening, and I have thoughts, but I didn't want to jump in and interrupt anybody's thoughts or process. So I do appreciate, Hassan, you bringing me in. Should I speak on the topics that you guys are talking about?
Introduce yourself first so people can know who you are, a little bit about you, and then you can go ahead.
My name is Magnetic. I am an artist. I'm a writer. I'm a teacher. And I have thoughts and opinions on political issues and social issues and things of that nature. And that's why I'm here. Appreciate the ability to add my 2 cents.
So go ahead, Magnetic, and then we'll let G.S.
Can I have the brothers' names so I can address them properly? Fritz. Fritz with an F? Yes, sir. Okay, pleasure to meet you, brother.
G.S. Brooks, introduce yourself, brother.
All right, thank you for the introductions. Yes, my name is G.S. Brooks. I'm the founder of the At-Risk Movement, which is a program for high-risk minorities, young people that's gang involved or court involved. We mentor them and we lead them on a more healthy path of life. So that's the work that I do.
So please let us know whether you're Democrat, Republican, or other.
I'm not Democrat or Republican. I don't believe,
okay, Magnetic, are you Democrat, Republican?
I don't identify, or I'm not a registered Democrat or Republican. My views are mostly right-leaning, if I had to say. So I do find myself in agreement with Fritz. If I have your name correct, I hope I do. Yes, sir. You good? Yeah. So the brother has a lot of great points that he was making that need to be made to our people. I would say I agree with, from when I started listening, maybe about, 10, 15 minutes ago, I agree with at least 95% of what the brother had to say. We have an obsession with victimhood. We have an obsession as a people with being oppressed, with maintaining a mindset of an oppressed person.
The victim mindset, the hypocrisy of white-leaning MAGA individuals should be studied. While they claim that black people have every opportunity as white people and others, and that the black population in the United States are infatuated with victimhood, on the other side of the coin, they assert that the president is doing so much for black Americans. If black Americans were doing so well, why would they need to have a president do things specifically for the black population? Even the numbers do not support that argument. The median income of black households in the United States are approximately $44,100 in net worth, compared to approximately $284,310 for white households. The wealth gap in the U.S. alone gives us empirical evidence and data that proves that there are severe gaps in opportunity and income development that economically handicaps black Americans. But right-leaning so-called conservatives will blatantly state that black Americans have every opportunity as everyone else, which is statistically false. In addition, black Americans have worked for white-owned corporations since 1619. Black Americans should not have to work for white-owned corporations anymore in order to survive in the United States. These talking points suggest that black Americans should be the permanent underclass or workforce for white-owned businesses. The problem is economic deprivation has never been rectified in the United States. Black entrepreneurs often struggle to secure business loans and funding because lending requirements are frequently tied to wealth and assets that many have historically been denied the opportunity to accumulate. If access to wealth has been systematically limited, but obtaining financing requires hundreds of thousands of dollars in collateral or capital, many black entrepreneurs entrepreneurs are effectively excluded before they even begin. This is one reason many within the black community argue that the game is fixed. There are many black ideas, inventions, and intellectual property that have been stolen by white-owned companies or corporations who possess the funding to hijack black legacy for their own profit. However, the individuals that want to blame blacks for their misfortune will only highlight their inability to overcome immeasurable odds, not the fact that there are so many obstacles that stagnate the development of black success. However, when black people mention the disparity and the systematic exclusion of black entrepreneurship, they are told that they are infatuated by victimhood. The goal is for them to pretend that there's an equal playing field and to intimidate and shame black Americans to suffer in silence. Take, for example, a guy like Charlie Kirk. He said, if there's a black pilot, I hope that he is qualified to fly the plane. Because as a white male, he understood the system was not designed for black people to get those type of positions. It was designed to keep them excluded from high-paying and skilled positions and designated them to low-paying, entry-level skilled positions and servant work. A pilot, a doctor, a scientist, etc. is subconsciously viewed as a white man's job. This mindset alone reflects the expectation in the United States for the exclusion of black Americans from access to higher paying opportunities. And the result of this mindset is reflected in the social wealth gap. Economic deprivation is still alive and well in the United States. But despite this reality, many people, white, black, Latino, and Asian, victim blame black Americans for their lack of outcomes.
And a lot of that is due to Democratic influence, the influence of the Democratic Party, the influence of grifters and Marxists and people who have an interest in keeping our people in a subservient position, mentally, financially, socially, etc. So I think that Trump is probably the best president I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm in my mid-40s. He's done a lot for black people. The media has been smearing him, deliberately painting him as some sort of Hitler or Nazi, as some sort of racist. But what I find funny about that is if we go back to the 80s to the 90s and to the early 2000s and even a little bit beyond that, we're looking at a guy who black celebrities love. Oprah loved Trump. Yep. Rappers loved Trump. You can look at him coming on The View not too many years ago before he got involved in politics and see Oprah hugging on him and kissing on him and he's the greatest guy in the world. Now you turn on The View and Whoopi Goldberg, Whoopi Goldberg hugging on him, talking about how great he is. Now, when you see him now showing up on The View or how he's talked about by the same people, they're talking about him like they seen him lynch their grandfather or something. It's absolutely ridiculous. And most of it is rooted in propaganda. And that's being deliberately done in almost the opposite way that they decided to paint Obama as Barack the Magical Negro, a guy who could do no wrong, when adversely he did more harm to black Americans and black America than Trump, which is fascinating to me. But it shows you the power of propaganda. It shows you the power of the media. It shows you the power of these institutions like colleges and universities that are full of professors who are coming out of think tanks like the Tavistock Institute, who are implementing these Marxist ideologies and ideas and progressive liberalism that's actually destructive towards black people, towards other original or indigenous people. It's harmful to women with the feminism. It's harmful to obese people with the body positivity movement. They're just going with gay people, trans people. All these people are being harmed by these ideologies that are being pushed on them by really radical Marxists who have infiltrated the academic system as well as other systems that govern our society. I'll stop there. I don't want to be too long-winded. And the way to shut them down is to call them racist. That's it.
Can I respond to that a little bit?
Please do.
Well, one of the first things that you said, Brother Magnetic, was that blacks are infatuated with a victimhood mindset, correct?
Correct.
And how can you justify that statement? What do you mean that black people are infatuated with a victimhood mindset?
Well, the brother was just, Fritz, he was just mentioning a few examples of that. We look at the Carmelo Anthony situation. which is, I think, a pretty accurate example of that victim mentality or that oppressed mindset. When we looked at one young man, a teenager who stabs another teenager in the heart, stabs him to death over pretty much nothing. If I told you, or if I told the average person who was black in America, hey, there was one young man who stabbed another young man because he pushed him or told him to leave or something like that. If I didn't bring race into that conversation, there would be no question in anybody's mind, oh, he was wrong. You don't do that. That's crazy. That's nuts. Why would somebody just pull out a knife and stab another kid? But then you find out that it's a black kid that stabs a white kid, and then we start to twist and contort our brains to find a reason or a way to make this kid who was a murderer out to be the victim somehow.
Lyrical Black is back, all in, we're gonna win, check it out. Come on. Here we go again. The psychology of freedom. What is freedom? Is it simply the absence of bars and chains? Or is it something deeper? The psychology of freedom takes readers inside the walls of prison to explore a profound truth. A person can be physically free, yet mentally imprisoned, and physically confined, yet mentally and spiritually liberated. Through lived experience, the psychology of freedom reveals how correctional institutions shape behavior, relationships, and identity, not only for prisoners, but for families, communities, and society as a whole. Discover the hidden psychological effects of incarceration, the pathologies that can outlast a prison sentence, and the mindset shifts that can transform adversity into opportunity. This is more than just a book about prison. It's a book about reclaiming the mind. The Psychology of Freedom by G.S. Brooks, available now on Amazon.com. Because true freedom begins within.